Hey guys, it's One with the Truth. I was reading this article on counterthink.com titled Why the End of America is Sooner Than You Think. And I thought it was great. And I thought I would, in an animated fashion, just read it to you. So you can go ahead and browse the internet and just do what you are doing. And so you can see what this guy has to say. So here, I'll start. I recently moved to Ecuador, not for a vacation, not for a month or two. I moved to Ecuador for good, as a permanent resident. Upon hearing my plans for living in South America, many people who knew me in the States asked things like, well, what about the stability of Ecuador as a nation? To which I responded, oh, you mean the stability of banks that don't make loans and don't invest in derivatives? You mean the stability of a nation where the population still has the courage to march in the streets and throw corrupt officials out of its capital? See, these questions make Americans pause. Most tend to think of public demonstrations as signs of a political instability. But in fact, public demonstrations are a sign of a healthy democratic process. And democracy is alive and well in Ecuador, with the usual level of corruption you find in any democracy. It is in America where the sheeple have been terrorized into staying inside boundaries of their little protest zones that you find a fragile, unstable nation. Through complacency and fear mongering, most Americans have become cowards when it comes to political activism. They think emailing their senator a few times a year is all that's required to defend freedom and preserve a nation. Marching in the streets is seen as uncivilized or even unpatriotic. The government agrees with this too, now labeling anyone who protests in public a potential terrorist and targeting them for FBI investigations. The multi-trillion-dollar theft scheme. In the meantime, while the sheeple of America are caught up in their hypnotic dreams of world domination, white-collar hoodlums in Washington, D.C. and Wall Street are stealing everything. The oft-repeated creation of $1 trillion in new money out of thin air by the Federal Reserve has made the U.S. dollar the laughing stock of the whole world. The leaders of the G20 nations have already decided to ditch the dollar and shift to other world currencies. And China is now blatantly and publicly asking the U.S. to put some kind of collateral up to back up their debt purchases. To which the U.S. says, don't worry about the debt. We're good for it. And when $165 million in bonus money got paid to AIG employees, the tyrants in Washington demonstrated the true reach of their confiscatory punishment by enacting, within mere days, a 90% income tax on those bonuses. Sure, I agree those AIG executives deserve no bonus money. But the fact that the legislative branch of the United States government can reach out and hammer a targeted group of U.S. citizens with a retroactive 90% income tax rate should send shivers through any American that earns any income at all. It is all taken on the caricature of a political circus. The perception around the world is that America is not merely a land of the incompetent and the bankrupt, it's also a land of fiscal buffoons and political puppets who have no real ability to save the crashing economy. But the real story starts to unfold when you realize the Federal Reserve is now hell-bent on multiplying the U.S. money supply by a whopping 15 times in 2009. This excellent article explains how this number is derived, and I'll link that to the right. Now think about this. If the Federal Reserve increases the U.S. money supply by a factor of 15, that means your U.S. dollars will be only worth 1/15 of the value they represent right now. So a loaf of bread that cost $1 could cost $15 when all this extra money ripples through the system, which will obviously take a couple of years, but 2009 will be the beginning of it. This is called hyperinflation. We're talking about a loss of over 93% of the purchasing power of the dollar. That, my friends, is called a collapse of the currency. And once it starts, the floodgates will be opened, and the tsunami of investors and nations offloading dollars will be catastrophic and irreversible. By the time it's all done, the dollar might end up losing 99.9% of its value, and you can use greenbacks to light a fire or wipe your backside, as they will be useless for anything else. That's why I say America's days are numbered. The America as we know it, at least. This repeated creation of trillions of dollars in new money by the Federal Reserve is the last great looting of the U.S. economy by the wealthy elite. The Titanic is sinking, and high officials have monopolized the life rafts, leaving everyone else to drown with the ship. And while they're rowing away from the doomed vessel that's taken on water, they shout back to the low-income workers clinging to the rails, "Don't worry! The ship isn't really sinking. It's just correcting." The truth is that America is sinking. And it's not just the currency I'm talking about here. America's criminal healthcare system has sickened the population and outlawed any real healing practices too. Meanwhile, the FDA and FTC have attempted to destroy all knowledge of natural remedies that can prevent and cure disease, further compromising the future of the American people. On the dollars and cents side, America's economy is a fictitious mishmash of corporations selling poisons to the people and people buying junk they don't need, and everybody paying through the nose for disease care services that ultimately provide no net benefit to the population. America's infrastructure is crumbling. Its industries are already gutted, and its exports resemble third world agricultural nations more than first world developed nations. Its political leadership is, with very few exceptions, a brand of diseased, ignorant, influence peddlers who sell out their constituents at every opportunity. Perhaps more importantly, America has abandoned the principle of law. Laws no longer matter in America because they are selectively enforced only against those who threaten powerful institutions or corporations. America is no longer a nation of freedom and justice for all. Rather, it is a nation of greed and profit for the few, followed by oppression and bankruptcy for everybody else. Given these circumstances, it is not difficult to predict the demise of America as we know it. The US dollar will eventually collapse or be abandoned. This could happen literally overnight, or it could take years. But make no mistake, the American people will not be forewarned of the collapse of the dollar. It will be a sudden surprise announcement, and all the politicians and banking elitists who engineered the whole thing will pronounce their shock that such a thing could happen. "We could never have predicted this," they will insist, even while the whole thing was actually engineered by the very same people. One day Americans are going to wake up and discover that all banks are on bank holidays, which means that someone in Washington is taking a holiday with your money while you can't access it. Within hours, the National Guard will roll into the cities of the United States, and Americans will find themselves penniless prisoners in their own country. Anyone who protests will be arrested or shot. Law will be dispensed at the end of military rifles, and the president will get on television and explain how this is all being done for your benefit. It's for your own safety and protection, didn't you know? From here, it's difficult to say exactly what will unfold. We could see UN troops on U.S. soil, the IMF taking over the U.S. banking system, and the forced transition to a global currency. Other possibilities include the balkanization of the formerly United States of America, with regional nation states declaring their own independence from Washington. During this chaos, just-in-time delivery of food and products will grind to a halt. Store shelves will be emptied. A healthy economy of barter will immediately spring upon to fill the void. Those who have things to trade, toilet paper, butter, salt, sugar, matches, gold, silver, fuel, etc., will eat. Those who don't will starve. Health will plummet and infectious disease will become a very real threat in many cities. The conventional medical system will, of course, be utterly useless and will run out of medicine within days or weeks. This economic transition chaos will be short-lived, however, and from the ashes of economic turmoil will spring a new nation or nations of people who have finally awakened from their complacency. New governments will be forged, and the fields of economic ruin will be ripe for the planting and sprouting of new ideas from a new generation of visionary leaders. It's One with the Truth signing out. Hope you guys enjoyed that a little bit or got something out of it, and hope you at least could understand it. Alright, take it easy.